Mob of the Dead, a map that is marked in history and is never absent from most people's top 5 zombies maps. This is going to be a very long video because Mob is the first in a series of maps that were considered the golden age of zombies. Mob of the Dead saved the zombies community from a grave that was destined to be. Without this map, none of us would be here today, and it is through this video I will explain to you why this came to be and why Mob of the Dead is an all-time classic. Now before we even get into this map, I want you to look at where the community was. Every single map since Keynote or Toten has not necessarily been a universal success. There has always been people that shut down maps because of various reasons. 5 was way too hard, Kino was way too boring, Call of the Dead was way too annoying, Shangri-La was way too hard again, and Moon was way too bland. And that was just in Black Ops 1. When we shift over to Black Ops 2, it gets even worse when you look at the maps we have gotten so far are Transit, Nuketown, and Die Rise. And it is at this point where we look behind the scenes. Pretty much every map thus far has been helmed by Jimmy Zielinski, but when the Uprising DLC trailer came around, we saw a new face, Jason Blundell. Jason really pushed the envelope of what was thought possible. With many maps that have innovated before, it really changed a lot of what zombies was about, but it did it very reserved or not right the first time. With Derice on the first Pack-a-Punch, Ascension on the first Easter egg, Transit on the first large-scale map, Mob of the Dead is also the first Blundell map, but it comes out swinging. There are very few missed opportunities in Mob of the Dead, and everything is done to near perfection, and that's what leads us to booting up the map and watching the opening cutscene. It starts in black and white, which isn't the first time in zombies, but a first in the cutscene space. We basically start with characters going over their escape plan. The guard, Stanley Ferguson, strolls through the cell block and goes past our 4 main playable characters. First up is Sal DeLuca, who seems pretty friendly and charming. There's a level of manipulation to let Ferguson's guard down, all summed up in that iconic line, "Ain't that swell?" Next, the guard walks past Finn O'Leary. He is much more straightforward with Ferguson and doesn't give him any BS, but still wins him over for his promises in the upcoming race. Finn and Sal are opposites in charm but manage to reach the same goal of gaining the guard's trust. Next we head to Billy Hansen's cell, who points out and suggests to do quote-unquote something about a hurt inmate. Billy isn't even trying to win over Ferguson. He is a violent person right off the bat, and my favorite part is the lighting of each cell. Sal's cell is very warmly lit. Even though it's in black and white, you can still feel a sense of invitation. Finn's cell is pretty neutral, standard black and white. There's no BS again. And then Billy's cell is pitch black, only really lit by his cigarette. It is here where the cutscene takes our turn to our final character, Al Arlington. Better known as the Weasel, he tricks Ferguson into thinking he is hurt so that he unlocks his cell, but then brutally murders him. Turns out everyone was a part of this plan and equally guilty for what has transpired. Weasel unlocks the other cells and they all try to execute their escape plan. So it is here where we see morality and grayness within Call of Duty Zombies characters for the first time. Gone are the days of stereotypes and over-the-top action. This story is real and the characters are complex. So even with the opening cutscene, there is evolution in the storytelling. The rest of the cutscene is typical zombies action, but also reveals the premise of the map. In the cutscene, everyone dies before the map even starts, so that is why we spawn in as Afterlife Mode. This is a ghostly blue dimension, and it's very interesting and adds more innovation to unlocking the map. Instead of just a simple power switch, everything around the map needs to be zapped with the Afterlife ghost. The spawn room teaches these lessons perfectly. In Afterlife, in the spawn room, there is a double points behind a locked cell. Zapping the voltmeter unlocks the cell door and teaches gameplay lessons about the map. There's also a map of the prison with various areas marked, giving players ideas of what to look for. It is spelled out in both various gameplay elements and the HUD itself that finding and building plane parts is probably a good idea. There is even a checklist so you can look at how many plane parts you have and which ones you are still missing and where to find them. Also from the spawn, you can see where the mystery box is, so if that's your first priority, you can do that. A nice feature as well is that when you buy the first door, both doors open, so you don't have to necessarily initially choose going left or right. You can do both at the same time in the same round. So it's because of this you can determine where the warden's key is right off the bat as well. There's so much to help the player out, and understandably so, because this is the first complex quest style map. Bloody messages and arrows help players navigate the prison. On solo you can get one revive per round, so technically if you are struggling, you have plenty of safety nets. There's so much here to help out new players and nudge them in the right direction that it's nearly impossible to say that Mob of the Dead is too complicated. All of your essentials are always there, and the game teaches you lessons you need to learn so that you aren't lost in the dark. So to actually get set up on this map, there are two main goals: the plane parts and dog heads. The dog heads are pretty neat, and they are actually the first soul box mechanic in zombies besides Moon. Accidentally discovering them is also pretty easy, as going up to the center cell block there is a closed door and the B23R. Most players will take the B23R and kill zombies fast approaching them. Killing zombies in this area reveals the dog head, so it intrigues people to find out more. Completing a dog head shows a symbol associated with it, and both other dog heads are also in commonly visited areas. The docks dog is right next to a buildable table, and the infirmary dog is right in front of you if you're going up to the stairs to the roof. So it is easily discoverable and gives players an idea on where to go throughout the map. Filling 3 dog heads gives players the Hell's Retriever, which is an awesome tomahawk weapon that can be charged and always comes back to you. This is such an awesome weapon, and the fact that it doesn't take up a grenade slot is awesome. It's just there because why not? Why not have a fiery tomahawk that can seek zombies, pick up drops from a distance, and has a really quick recharge rate? This was such an iconic equipment that the steps to obtain it were copied into Risendrach, and its behavior was a part of the Shadow's upgraded sword. Back to plane parts now. The plane is how you get to Pack-a-Punch. Plane parts are mandatory and have various ways to get them. Some are just as simple as unlocking a door or shocking a voltmeter, but some are a little bit more complex than that. For example, in the shower room, there is a washing machine that puts you in a lockdown. Considering this is the early game and you are suddenly forced into a lockdown, this is a great combat challenge since most people will have a B23R at best, or maybe an MP5. A good puzzle challenge is the stairwell piece, where walls show you a number of a code you have to enter at the bottom of the stairs in Afterlife Mode. And then finally, this is the one piece I'm not a fan of. The final part is in the warden's office, but you can't unlock the door. So what you need to do is go down to the docks in this generator room and shock 3 generators. This is pretty easy, but the connection between the two is not there. Every other plane part unlock is either right next to or near the thing you need to use to unlock it. Why is there such a disconnect with this one part specifically? It's fine and it's just a nitpick, but you can see what I mean. My point with this thing is that even though Mob of the Dead is on the more complex quest-style map side of things, there are plenty of things that Treyarch expertly crafted and placed so that new players aren't polarized from it right away. This sense of discovery is what would revitalize zombies and giving a whole new layer of depth to zombies. It's not just about zombies, perks, and Pack-a-Punch anymore. It's now about discovering secrets right up there alongside. Secrets have always been there, but in the form of ciphers or small nudges or anything. Nothing to this scale. Mob's secrets don't end at just a Pack-a-Punch and the Hell's Retriever. there are more secrets that are not so obvious. For starters, you can upgrade your Hell's Retriever into the Hell's Redeemer. This is pretty simple, as just getting kills with the Hell's Retriever, then surviving a full round on the bridge with only the Retriever, then throwing the Tomahawk into this fire pit, which by the way, throwing normal grenades in there gives you 20 points. So then pass a few more rounds, and then going into the Afterlife mode and going into this area where you will normally find the Retriever gets you the Redeemer. This is a better version that can kill into the very, very high rounds. In fact, I think it has infinite damage if I remember correctly. Then with the Redeemer, you can throw it at this poster, which unlocks a whole new Afterlife area. In this tunnel, you can zap a spoon, which can be accessed by the cafeteria. But you can also upgrade this, where you can place the spoon in this tub in the infirmary, then get a bunch of vitrolic withering kills in the shower room, and then pick it back up again. And it can one-hit kill zombies almost until round 40. Not only is this a cool nod to an actual Alcatraz escape story where digging through the concrete walls using only a spoon and covering up with a poster is a thing, but also the sheer roughness of all the animations and assets used in the spoon golden spork process feels like it was tossed in there at the last minute just because. Finally, there's this Blundergat, which you can get from the box and then get a second one from probably the first free quest we've seen in zombies. Every other wonder weapon we've seen up until this point has either been from the mystery box or a buildable. We have yet to see a quest to obtain a wonder weapon. This one starts off pretty simple by collecting 5 skulls around the map with the Hell's Retriever. These might seem random, but you can actually see the skulls in Afterlife mode in a pretty common locations, so it's pretty logical. So then grabbing the 5 skulls and then going to the warden's office will get you a free Blundergat. So if you wanted to, you can have 2 Blundergats at the same time. Something that will be sorely missed in future games. So the Blundergat itself has 2 upgrade paths that both lead to the same place. You can either pack-a-punch it and it becomes the sweeper, or you can build the acid kit and turn it into the acid gat. But putting the sweeper in the acid kit or pack-a-punching the acid gat both get you the vitrolic withering. Both of these versions of the wonder weapon are good in their own way. The sweeper is a powerful shotgun with some pretty good range, and the vitrolic withering is an acid shooter with a monkey bomb effect. This weapon combo is awesome for the nature of the map. The sweeper is for more offensive training and quickly getting rid of Brutus, while the vitrolic withering is more of a defensive weapon for getting out of situations. The only problem is the ammo, and using the Hell's Retriever and Golden Spork can temporarily take care of that. So Mob not only really steps up the game with its depth, but also the tools and raising the bar of power. Going from powerful wonder weapons to improved melee weapons and equipment with infinite damage. So we can see it really emphasizes the power fantasy that we are starting to see in zombies. Going from a basic soldier with a weak pistol to this 115 infused wonder weapon killing machine, right? So we can see how Mob of the Dead raises the bar with story and wonder weapons, but how else does it raise the bar? Black Ops 2 went on a new perk streak of constantly making new perks in pretty much every map, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Mob of the Dead brings probably the best perk out of the bunch. Electric Cherry sends out an electric burst every time you reload, and the more empty your clip, the stronger the burst, so using the Blundergat variants will always give you the strongest burst. On the other hand, there is only 5 perks on the map, with Deadshot Daiquiri clearly being the weakest one out of the bunch. You will always have to get the same 4 perks every time. This really doesn't help with the fact that Mule Kick and PhD are also in the map, but not accessible. I can only guess this was a memory problem and was resolved with the Wonder Fizz in Origins. Makes me wonder why it couldn't have been retroactively patched in somewhere, or maybe include a way to have just gotten all 5 perks. Before we get to the Easter egg, I have some other notable mentions I want to point out. Those are the traps and music. The traps in the Mob of the Dead are really creative and aren't like anything we've seen before. Keep in mind, we haven't seen zombie traps since Ascension. That was 6 maps ago. We went the same amount of maps with traps from Verrucht, the first play we saw him, to Ascension, the last place we had traps. That was 6, and that's the same amount of maps from Call of the Dead to Die Rise without traps. That was a huge gap, and I'm very grateful we finally see them return. There is this classic acid shower in the cafeteria, the warden's office has these spinning blades, and finally the sniper tower at the docks, which can be upgraded into the rocket tower, weirdly enough. These traps are thematically appropriate for Alcatraz, which I really like. There's also the music Easter eggs, which there are plenty of. I think good music only adds to a map and bad music shouldn't subtract from a map, as in the end, music is really subjective. Where Are We Going is a pretty cool spin on zombies music that we have seen before, and Rusty Cage is just a classic. Perfect song for Mob of the Dead if you ask me. There's also some more secretive eggs, which I think are just silly. As an example, if you load up into the maps and don't do anything, if you bleed out and go into Afterlife, you will get Samantha's Lullaby and Pan to the Moon as your game over screen. Mob also introduces what I believe is the first OST in zombies, which is just really cool. There's so many classics, like the bridge theme. Going up into the infirmary has this creepy music. Going to the docks is kind of somber. Really adds a lot of atmosphere to the map. Now, I've always said that a map is only as good as its Easter egg, but Mob of the Dead had a pretty meh egg. The steps are pretty straightforward, but also tedious and easy. You have to fly to the bridge 3 times and then type in 4 codes. Listen to some audiobooks, fly to the bridge in Afterlife. Very quick and straightforward, but also underwhelming. I feel like something else should have been added in the place of the 3 plane visits, as going around the map to pick up the fuel canisters 3 times is pretty tedious. But the plane parts also give every part of the map purpose, so it's a double-edged sword if you ask me. I will give it some slack, as basically the rest of the map is an Easter egg in itself, and in terms of story, it's actually pretty good. But there isn't a combat nor puzzle challenge. If you know how to pack-a-punch, you know half this Easter egg already. The codes are your character's prison numbers, then listen to some audio logs which lead you up to the roof. There is no combat challenge so far, and a very weak puzzle. Narratively, it's pretty good, which I personally enjoy, but I can see why others do not. I think the same treatment could be applied to Transit and Die Rise if the narrative wasn't so weak. Thankfully, the narrative in Mob is superb, and we learn that the mobsters actually never went through with their escape plan. They ended up fighting on the roof and are cursed to pay for their sins for eternity. So, for the final step, all players need to board the plane in Afterlife mode and fly to the bridge. We're now in a face-off, as it is Weasel versus the rest of the crew. The players can damage each other, and whoever dies first is what ending you get. If the rest of the players kill the Weasel, the cycle continues. But if the Weasel kills the other players, the cycle is broken. Now let's talk about this ending. From a gameplay perspective, it's pretty unique, as you can kind of be seen as a 1v1 in zombies. While narratively it makes sense, from a now modern 2021 perspective, it sucks that we can't complete this Easter egg solo. You can do every step until you need to get on the Afterlife plane, but I still wish Black Ops 2 was a bit more solo friendly. And thankfully, the plutonium mods just came out, so we can all rest easy with this bot sacrificing itself for the greater good. Also, thankfully, Jason Blundell would realize this in his next map. Narratively, this was a seed planted for Jason's grand vision of cycles. Every idea he wanted to take with the zombie storyline he had right here as a micro version. Mob's cycle had great repercussions, as we will eventually see on the same island in Blood of the Dead. Continuing the cycle plays into our Black Ops 3 journey, and breaking the cycle leads us down our Black Ops 4 journey. This is the keystone of Jason Blundell era storytelling, and it nicely wraps up a self-contained narrative in Alcatraz. 4 characters surrounded by a situation greater than themselves are set on a journey led by a funny talking leader who has a great vision of surviving and escaping, accompanied by 3 others to assist in his grand scheme. And if completed, isn't a win for anyone, but if the ultimate price is paid, everyone else is freed and escapes their cycles. Mob is a mini version of the rest of the Aether storyline, and we would come to appreciate the greatest turning point in zombies history. It is because of Mob of the Dead that zombies began its golden age. Easter eggs for charity, Zombies World Champions, the Z House, zombie YouTubers in general, everything you can possibly think of as the zombies community started right here. My final rating for Mob of the Dead is a 9.8 out of 10. Double S tier.
We bad motherfuckers just keeping it real. OG aces are the real deal. Blasting away at Alcatraz, blowing our hands with the blunt to gas. Got us out pretty soon to set up first. Setting up the traps and pretending they were mortal monsters fire.